Welcome everyone to Dabi and Costello. I actually may have to stop saying on either side of the Hudson because there's a very, very good chance that it will be a slightly larger body of water between us rather shortly.
Whoa! That's correct. That is
Oh,
correct.
and what might that be?
I thought you were moving for some reason. I was like, whoa!
I'm
You
not
didn't tell
moving
me this.
anywhere. I'm holding the fort.
Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know, man. Me.
Mm.
So, yeah. I'm preparing to leave on Sunday to start
Mm.
Tyrus Opera Faust. But then again, like COVID, we'll see.
Yeah,
It's like it's a day at a time with this thing.
yeah,
Right now, the spikes are incredibly high in France, and it seems like everything is closed and they're in quarantine, but not full lockdown, but they're in curfew and stuff like that tonight.
yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, it's like a catch-22. You go and you open, or you go and you don't, or you know what I mean. It's who knows? Who knows what's
Yeah.
going to happen? So
And we will
you
still
know,
be doing the show for anyone confused, and it
yeah,
will
and I
air
won't
at the usual time.
and I won't talk about it because I kind of feel like I can talk a little bit about it, and it's up on their website and it's
Yeah.
advertised, so it's not like it's a secret. But I just feel like I jinx it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I jinx it.
Yeah.
Like the last time I was supposed to go, we talked about it on the show, and then
Hmm.
boom, it didn't happen. But
Do you know what though? That reminds me of when David Cohn pitched his perfect game for the Yankees in 1998. Let's go Yankees. He, they say you don't say perfect game, you don't say all this stuff. Anyway, they play the radio broadcast in the locker room, the whole game. So, in between innings, the pitcher goes. Sometimes he changes his shirt if he gets too sweaty or something. And he said all he heard from Michael Kay, the color commentator, was perfect game, perfect game, perfect game. He's like, oh my God, stop it. And he still pitched a perfect game. So now anytime someone is perfect through like 5 or 6 innings, Michael Kay would be like, and it's a perfect game. And I don't want to hear anybody's shit because when David Cohn pitched his perfect game, he heard me say it about 20 times and he still got the perfect game. And then John Sterling says, I don't believe in that because if I had that kind of power, I should be getting paid a lot more. That was his defense. I have you ever heard, by the way, of the actor's nightmare?
no, I haven't.
So you've probably had it, and I bet many people watching this show have had it. You find yourself on stage in an opera, in a play, but you don't know your part.
Always
You
for me,
don't know
Magic Flute.
Imagine you even know what you're in, and you don't know it. You see, for me, it's always some new. How many times have you had that dream?
I don't
Several?
know. Usually, if I wait too long to start looking at something, that's when I have the dream.
Okay. But it's usually revolved around. So one summer I had it 4 times when I was covering Billy Bigelow and Carousel. I think probably all the lines got me worked up about it. I've had it 4 times in quarantine.
Why? You're not doing
not.
anything.
I'm not preparing. I don't know. I Vintaliza if I'm bored. I don't know. I'm not even preparing anything. And I had that dream, so I don't know. I think it's gonna be okay. Maybe I'm feeling that we're getting out of it. Thank God, God willing, that we're getting out of it. But anyway,
Hopefully.
we have. What's that?
Hopefully, I just got a letter from the state of New Jersey that says I'm eligible now to get my COVID vaccine, and
Oh,
and we'll schedule you in as soon as we have more.
thanks, thanks, awesome. Anyway,
Yeah.
well, God
So
willing.
tell me, throughout the course of the show, let me know if you like the sound coming out of this. And I usually use the Blue Yeti. Remember the Blue
Yeah,
Yeti
I
that
think
I have?
it's very clear. I like it.
I usually use it, but I decided to just use these pods today because every time we do the show,
Yeah,
the way I have everything situated, I have to kind of lean in
yeah.
to talk into it all the
Right.
time, and I end up with a terrible backache when I'm done.
Yeah. My mic, I can't even see it because it's right. Wait, I can see it. It sort of blends in with my back. I'm really obsessed with this kind of mic, so I'm not going to switch anytime soon. But let's talk about our guest. This guest is very important to me personally. It was sort of somebody that we had kicked around as having a guest, basically from the time we started this thing. And our guest today is the great Mark Oswald, voice teacher, baritone, now retired performer. He has sung with Dallas Opera, Vienna Staatsoper, Hamburg Opera, St. Louis, San Francisco, San Diego, and I don't know if you know some of these factoids, Stephen, over 500 performances at the Metropolitan Opera. He made his debut at the ripe old age of 23 years old. Okay, then he retired. Maybe he'll talk about his personal reasons for retiring. And he's been on the faculty of the Manhattan School of Music since 2003. He has such illustrious students, also guests of the show, including Morris Robinson, including Russell Thomas, Ryan Speedo Green, Michael Todd Simpson, David Cangellosi, and if I may say, myself, for now 17 years. So before we bring him on, let's see what he's been doing in his spare time, shall we? Let's take a gander. This is courtesy of his wife Belinda's Instagram. So here he is doing his thing, shall we? Mark, how high is that?
The pushed up Russian tenor.
How high is that? B flat at the top, Mr. Baritone? Okay, can we talk a little bit about that one time? Now, I know a lot of these stories because you and I have been very good friends now for almost 2 decades. Can we talk about that one time you decided that you were going to be a tenor and what you did?
Well, yes. About 10 years into my Met career, I just one day said, you know what, I've always been able to sing high. I'm just going to start singing high. So I sang a private session for an audition for Jonathan Friend. We all know who that is. And I sang Pagliacci and Tosca, and he sat there like, okay, now what do we do?
And what did you decide to do?
Well, I went back to baritone because I had a couple of auditions and they didn't go that well, really.
So your party trick turned out to not be as sustainable.
It was such a tough decision, I think, to one versus the other. I'm glad my teacher sort of got it right. I'm really kind of a Peleos or barber. And I can make myself somewhat of a chameleon to be a tenor for parties. As you know, Gideon, I sing Nessun Dorma at some Mets.
Yes, I recall your Nessun Dorma. I have a recording of it. In fact, couldn't get it in time for the show, but you also are a singer that never got over that whole hearing yourself on tape thing, did you?
No, in fact, I've never listened to myself to this day. I had my ears completely closed for the rendering that you just showed. So a little bit crazy. I just trusted everybody that I was good enough to be on the stage. I always felt that my sound was good inside my ear, and I didn't want to know how bad it actually was out there. Because I heard it once or twice, and I wasn't too pleased. So.
Oh man, Mark, I feel your pain. I hate listening to myself sing. I think we all do. I think we had a discussion about that. Gideon's the only one that likes listening to himself.
Yes,
let's be quite honest with that.
Yes, no.
But Mark, you had such a successes after your career as a teacher, even probably during your career. Who did you study with though?
I studied with a guy named Andrew White. His teacher was Sidney Deach. Andrew White taught Cheryl Milne. Sidney Deach taught Leonard Warren. And there was
no names.
Controversial approach that.
Why is it controversial, Mark?
I think it's controversial these days because a lot of folks don't like to use the word larynx. They don't like to use the word cover, but we all have to, for example, keep our larynx down a little bit. for high notes to maintain timbre and whatnot. And the initial building or developing of the voice was a little controversial. It was a little bit on the back and down side, generally speaking, with that particular teacher. And there was a little bit of initial strain involved. And so, I've learned in my teaching to deal with that type of thing, but it was also very, very good developmentally. What I found with most teachers is that they talk about the final polish too soon with singers. A high position, for example. We hear this at the Metropolitan Opera with the staff all day long, right, Stephen? Fronts, you got to have fronts, you got to have highs. But that develops, generally speaking, the voice develops from a position that may be a little bit lower for some people, if they need it, to a position that starts adding forward resonance and starts moving up in position, generally speaking. That which is often not taught these days, and I think it's one of the reasons that not as many Stephen Costellos or Gideon Dabis are around these days. Myself, so it really depends on the person. The teacher must be able to see the invisible, what the habits are, and make the proper adjustments and figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always say a good teacher is like that hologram they show on CSI, like when they're going through the crime scene and they're talking about, well, this was here and this was here, and you see like the logistics of how it all worked and how this thing happened. I am like voice teachers. A good voice teacher can see all that. Can see all that when you're singing. They can see where your throat's going. They can see where the air is going. Like they can mentally see it. Obviously, you can't physically see it, but they can mentally see it. They understand it.
I'm so glad that there are actually teachers out there, according to you, as you know, that can do that. I am surprised. We don't know what anybody teaches in any other studio. So we really don't know if that happens. And I'm really, really pleased about that, because I hear so many generalities, and these generalities are not good enough for singers to get to the top level like you guys are at.
Yeah, it's funny. Why do you think that is? If something's good and a singer is good, you want them to. I personally want them to talk about their technique and how they're doing it. If I go up there and I see a singer that's really just killing it, solid, top to bottom, even tone, great high notes, has control, I want to pick that person's brain. I want to know why do you think it is that people don't talk more about technique in the business to each other, or even or share what it is they're learning via their studios?
I think that each technique out there is considered sort of like a religion of some sort, which it couldn't be. We all teach something so different, and I think the controversy is too much for people. They don't want to bring it up. It's sort of like politics. It's pretty rough. I think a lot of singers really couldn't really describe what they actually do either. Is their B flat more open, let's say, than their A flat? Do they treat it that way? They should, generally speaking. That type of thing. But they shy away from it. And I think even in opera news articles, when famous singers do them. Have you done one, Stephen, yet?
No, they don't really like me in opera news. I'll do a whole show on that.
We got to get our cover girl Latanya to get you in there, to get us in there, right? Because they seem to love her as they should.
The singers are talking about the drama so much, the character, how it compels them. That's excellent that they're artists. For me, I was never the artist that I see that these people are, But what I see on the stage, even with an opera, I'm getting a picture of an Idomeneo I did, and it was a good cast overall. Domingo was a very fine Idomeneo, and he sings that last aria, I think, better than I've ever heard it sung. But they're talking about the drama all the time, and I don't see that behind the eyes of the singers that I used to sing with. Not a lot, to be honest. They are thinking technique generally once per system of music, and so long as they create the illusion of the character with the body, I'm not buying it. I saw in Aida on television not that long ago, and I didn't see much happening at all, and that's okay. I mean, they're under pressure. They've got to deal with the HD, which I never did, and that can be very difficult. But I didn't see a lot going on there as well. To me, as a bass that I used to work with, who sang in the Levine Gala at 1 a.m., John McCurdy used to say, "Voce, voce, voce." and really that's what opera is mostly. Of course, we have to create these interesting scenes with our directors. We have to deal with that. I'm pretty much a traditionalist, and of course I focus on vocal technique, so I'm apt to want to side on that side for sure.
Mark, we've had many different singers on the show with many different approaches, and there were two not quite opposing ideas, but two ideas that I wanted you to comment on. One was, of course, our hero Linda Eder, who mentioned that when she's always thinks about the emotion behind the song, and that sort of carries her, and that she doesn't always think about technique, but had mentioned that when she had a rough day, that she wouldn't be able to sing. She said that when you think about technique, you're always separate from yourself. But then she even confessed in the same conversation that when she was emotional about something else, she couldn't, distract it. That was one. The other is a more general idea about the idea as to how connected. This is difficult to sort of really codify, but how connected to the speaking voice singing actually is. And I'm saying this with respect to a guest we had who's done very well for himself in Lucas Meacham, who talked about saying, just say see, it's resonant, that's all you need. How do you feel about that idea, that how singing is that connected to speaking, and also the idea about using the emotion and whether or not that's as consistent?
Okay, make sure that second question comes back, because I'm going to forget about it. Okay. So it depends on the person. You have these radio announcer basses that have these incredible speaking voices, and you can put them on air and space a little bit in the back. But there are those of us like myself at age 20, and if I may say, even say someone like Michael Fabiano, I gave him about 5 lessons at Santa Fe. He had to put up with them, I guess.
Hold on, Stephen, we can't hear you.
Sorry, we lost you for a minute, Mark. Could you just go back?
Yeah.
Sure. There are those that have radio announcers strong speaking voices, and those of us that had no speaking voice in our early 20s, and we had to make the sound happen. In speech, generally we include the back of the nose, the hard palate, include that. Generally, so in singing we must include that. The effect, cause versus effect, the effect of the space, the support that we use, and a little bit of promoting some hard palate and forward resonance has to be done in combination. I don't believe that it is therefore speech is included, but I would say it's about 20% of it. To me, there's the space in the back, the dome that women always talk about, a gentle lift to the soft palate. There's also that space that one can say could be stretched straight back. There's also the space that's down. So I call it a C pocket, more or less. Of course, in longer duration pitches, the space will become a bit more important. And depending where you're at in each register, one or other of the spaces can be practically used to benefit the perfect pitch and vibration of the voice. So what you're doing in singing generally is having the space and the place in combination. One can also direct the tone out into the theater. I always insisted with this controversial method I was taught early on to make sure that I got the sound out there somehow. But developmentally, building the space on the inside is very, very important. And this is something that will have an effect in the front of the face to give the illusion of speech. Again, the shorter rhythms Yeah, the shorter rhythms are still going to have a certain amount of richness and space. They will feel almost entirely forward in a recitative, but it doesn't mean that there's no throat space or something behind it.
That's so important because oftentimes, and I've heard it said a lot to young singers, think more forward, think more forward. And it's not true. It resonates there. Naturally it does that. But the more forward you think, the more you get in trouble. What happens? You go forward right up to the top, and your nose is going to fall off, and your top gets all pinched, and it's incredible.
Thank you, Stephen. And Domingo, for example, who swallows his tongue nearly when he sings, right? This is, all the space that he had. So he's floating around in opera houses. The idea of just put it behind the nose or in your nose. Well, maybe that combination, although stretched out pretty far, is quite acceptable for him. But for others, and for other coaching staff people that take this idea to everybody there at the Met, it could be, disastrous.
We have our first question from someone. Mark Calvino asks, I've read that the vocal tone should be like a ping pong ball floating on a stream of air. Do you agree? If so, can you recommend breath and appoggiatura exercises? I think he might have arpeggio, maybe. But that's okay.
I would say no. Any vocalese is as good as the next almost. They sound, generally speaking, can be like a ping pong ball if we take the positive in the question. And it can be at the plane of the mask, I call it, at this plane in general. If I would say, okay, even for women, at what plane should they think? Should they think higher than men? Not really. Not really. So there's the larynx beneath the tone, and the tone always feels generally in this area, but is made by a plethora of different things that makes a difference. That is fairly complex, but the teacher's got to bring it into a practical, simple, positive, constructive way that each singer can go away from their lesson and pick up many, many things from each lesson. I haven't gotten to the answer just yet, and that wasn't a great answer, Mark. Sorry about that. About the drama, there are some singers like Mark Delavan, a very fine singer, who thinks drama exclusively in order to create the sound. So I think that one has to figure out what makes every singer tick, and if that works, great. Am I on? There's a singer I used to work with that used to say, okay, Mark, you're going to tell me what color I need to think for every note. I'm like, okay, yellow. I wonder if the possibility is like 1 in 20 that a singer such as herself, this famous singer you were talking about, sorry, I've forgotten the name, can benefit greatly from the drama. But if she's kind of worked up and has trouble, then obviously she's going to have some type of technique to fall upon. And so technique's got to be important. So musicality and drama can bring freedom to the voice. Of course, drama experts will always say that with the drama. Coaches will say that the musicality will, and to some degree that will. But I'm a teacher. I'm going to go with technique, and I'll argue that with anybody.
Yeah, yes, you will. What was I going to ask you? Oh, my God, I can't believe I forgot what I was going to ask you. Stephen, take over a second. I had a question here written down.
Oh, great.
Oh, wait, now I remember. Oh, no, I got it.
I have a question.
Oh, okay, okay, now you do. All right.
Question. Mark, I've noticed above your head, you have a Philadelphia Eagles poster.
Oh.
Are you a Philadelphia fan?
I am. And that is a freak. That is a fake, like, jersey of me, like I'm number 1 Oswald. I used to be a wide receiver, and like Wayne Cravett. You guys know who that is, the Jets guy?
Sure.
Runs the 15-yard hooks and whatnot. So that's back in high school. I was a 140-pounder. I'm just a little bit above that right now.
Well, I'm born and raised in Philly, man. So that's scoring some major points right now.
Yes, I used to love Randall Cunningham. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh,
Who was
Eagles talk. Here we go.
right?
Oh boy, cheaters. No, I'm just kidding.
Briefly, selfishly, must talk about the male passaggio and the female passaggio. And I feel very strongly about both, of course. Who doesn't? The Pavarotti, for example, okay, we all talk about him. We all say we teach like he sings and all of that. And that's, that is horse. Okay.
Oh, shit. Yes, I forgot. Yes.
We got to watch that a little bit. All right. The main thing, gentlemen, is that the O and the A vowel go into the top voice, call it what you want, cover, head voice, turn, flip, whatever. A half step lower than the A vowel. Pavarotti does this religiously. At F sharp and later in his career, for his particular voice, the A vowel was a cover. He calls it cover, it's coperto. It's a clear sound, but it's still protected. At F natural, as in recondita armonia, the Fs on the O and the A were actually in the cover. So one half step different. Now this causes the voice books that we all see in their passagios to just be thrown away entirely, in my opinion. Voice books say that there are 2 passagios for men, but they say they're at a perfect fourth. I often do not see that happening. I see for the A vowel a perfect fifth. If a tenor has an F sharp passaggio up top for the A, the B natural, as in tanto la vita, at the end of the Tosca aria, tanto la vita, will be
the keyboard.
rather vertically with a little bit, you'll notice a little bit of a darker asa. Okay, so that's male passaggio real fast, just in terms of pitch. For women, just to try to get through this real fast. And this is going to be the most controversial thing I say technically all day long.
Good, bring on the controversy.
Work it, yes. So almost all teachers women teachers believe that the passaggio for women ought to be whatever, F sharp or so for soprano, little bit lower for mezzo. And I believe that although one has to make a change there, and one might feel a different domier tone there, that through the last 25,000 hours in the last decade, 12,000 hours of which I've worked with women, not that other teachers haven't worked as much. But I find that for lyric sopranos and lyric mezzos, that the pitch of D natural for the A vowel at the same pitch, which I'm both proud and embarrassed to say, the same pitch for lyric sopranos and lyric mezzos truly should be thought of as the passaggio. They will still have all of the notes of their voice. Their voices will make different changes they'll make changes at different pitch levels in the top. There'll be differences in the bottom. The passaggios will be very close to the same. In order to blend, for example, a note right beneath this D passaggio, I call it D for dark, just in terms of the vowel, a passageway, of course, is not as open as a non-passageway. So why would one sing Italian on every single note, coaches out there? They shouldn't. I mean, so D natural, for example, please consider it, even though you're going to be miffed by it.
Mark, you mentioned Pavarotti. That's what I was going to ask you about, actually. You mentioned Pavarotti. For you, Pavarotti is not an abstraction. You sang with him. Yes.
I sang in Chicago in Japan. We sang, of course, Elisir duet together. He is, for the master, the technician, obviously. And he is quite the gear shifter. There are singers, there are tenors, of course, that have a blended or mixed or half cover ability. Luciano did not use it almost ever. So he is massively shifting at F natural from F to G. You can see this objectively. You can analyze this objectively, coaches and singers. But yet no one would say he has an uneven tone. No one would say he has an uneven tone. He doesn't use the first passaggio all that much, but when he wants to sing, say at the end of a Trovatore aria that ends in D flat, he will sing the D flat quite vertically, passaggio very, very different than an F. So every note is masterfully handled. In the passaggio, the very, very easy thing to see is that from G up to high C, little by little, as in a V, I call it V for voice, he will open little by little more and more and more. Now, what happens on the inside is, again, up for argument, but those of us, I'm glad I'm not the only one, who has the ability to envision things going on that have huge consequences to the singer, that's up for grabs. But obviously, he's in perfect shape. And of course, he's not, I wouldn't think that at high C, as you saw from everybody see his movie? It was phenomenal.
Yeah. We had that was a great little movie.
Those high C's were absolutely unbelievable.
Mark, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
So obviously his high C's, I would say, are generally at soft palate level, generally, kind of lifting out on both sides of in that area. And he's not really having to think this thing that I talk about here, backing down noble sound, which is, again, kind of developmental for those that are just learning their passaggio. So everybody's at a very, very different level, and I've had the joy of working with so many people at so many different levels to be able to figure this out from scratch, etc.
Mark, I always say, we said this on the show before, having worked in a masterclass situation, I haven't done many of them, but I find that younger singers and even some, singers that are on stage today, one of the biggest struggles is breathing and support. And it seems like maybe I'm wrong. It seems like in education or maybe in the college system, I don't know, it seems to get lost and not as important to people now as it is making a tone and making, can you explain why that is? And if you find that true and your thoughts on support and breathing. And
I want to try to get through this as fast as I can. I've been a little bit long-winded to start with.
It's an hour show.
Steven, just so you know, this is 17 years I've processed this information. This is my lesson.
Are you kidding? Look, I have to, before we go on, I just have to say, you've known Gideon for 17 years, right? And you're still there to tell the story. I've known Gideon now for, 2 years? 2 years. And since I've known Gideon for 2 years, my drinking has gone up.
Yeah, your hair's gotten grayer.
We had COVID. All my jobs were canceled. I don't know how you deal with this.
Hey, actually, you know what? I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity to say that a lot of people who know me well and a lot of people who have been on our show have actually done quite well for themselves. And I just very quickly, I didn't want to derail this too much, but our first story, real fast though, we'll get back to this. I just wanted to share this bit of information. Look at this. Our friend Julia Nulamora, our guest of a few months ago, is now the new CEO of Opera Columbus. So, Stephen, let's congratulate my good friend who's known me for many, many years and just got a great gig.
On. I love how every time someone that comes on the show is a success, we take credit.
We take credit. It's absolutely the case. Anyway, I just wanted to do a little plug and to push back on me being Typhoid Mary here.
So just so you know, Mark, just so you know, any success you have from now on out is because of us and you coming on the show.
No doubt about it. Mark, you mentioned you were talking about, we were talking about support. I'm sorry. So we're talking about support. Yes.
Okay, as fast as I can. No support, obviously, no sound. No air, no sound. So we got to have some of that. I'm going to talk about the inhalation and the exhalation as fast as I can. And then I'm going to put a but in there. Remind me about the but. Okay? Okay. So to me, well-meaning people, and you have to, and everybody that a singer works with, a coach, whomever, make believe that they're well-meaning. And there's something to be gained from them. Always have your hands out like, oh, I received this information. I want to have it. All right. The inhalation. Well-meaning people say you got to breathe low, lower, and lowest, or that's it. Now, I believe that if you breathe, if you include the lower abdominals, the word include, let's say, you're doing fine. So if you start the inhalation at the belly button, then think drop and lift. Some people that ski say they have two zippers, one that goes low and one that goes high. Don't forget the higher part too. Guys, we see women that have the corsets on. There's something moving above that. We see that. You know what I mean? So There is movement in both directions. The low is more important than the high. 2/3 of the inhalation in the front of the body, 1/3 in the back of the body. We want to include the belt buckle in the front of the body. We want to include the belt buckle in the back of the body when we inhale. The low is the most important, but it's not the only thing. So I think of it as zippers or zips and sip. Take a sip into the back of your, like as if you had a belt buckle back there. You can move that 1 inch or so. All right, the exhalation. So while the exhale and support, while you're focusing your mind in the lower zipper, even though you're using the higher zipper, let's say, right? You inhale. Then think down and out. So I'm a down and outer. I'm not straight out. I'm not straight down. Krauss just said, just push out. That's support. Stop it. All right. But there's a funny story about Krauss later, but if there's time, then no worries. So in between, I think of flexibly resisting down and out against the natural and good and inevitable collapse of the body. So if this is the front of the body and this is the back of the body, 2/3 in the front of the body, 1/3 in the back of the body. Think of including the belt buckle line when you exhale with this flexible grunting movement, and as your body gets smaller. All right, so you're going to engage the abs. There are certain muscles that want to help you come in and tuck. 1/3 of teachers talk about tucking. Well, there better be enough resistance against that, or else it's never going to work for you. You can, like in a studio, when I first started teaching the first couple of years, I was thinking about that a lot, tucking in and thinking about that kind of support. But it only got me to about a mezzo piano in between. It's really not enough for stage singing. So I think of a poggio to lean upon, the standard Italian thing that most people use. Think down and out, but the resisting muscles that resist against the body coming together, the lower abs, the upper abs, and the area 3 inches above the belt line at the back near the spine. 3 inches above that on either side of the spine. So those 3 muscles will generally resist against the body's want to collapse. However, here's the but. Generally speaking, if the position is right, the support will be right. Generally speaking, most teachers violently disagree with this. I do not agree with them.
What do you think, Stephen? I know you're a big. You always when we first did our first ever, it was an Instagram live that we did, and I remember you had a big emphasis on breathing. And do you agree with that statement? Do you find that that's true for you personally? That if the positioning is right, that the breath will follow?
Yeah, I think that the first initial breath in general is important. If you don't get that first initial breath, and it's not going to, and you're not set up correctly, it's not going to set you up for the rest of the phrase. And then from there on, you're just playing catch up the entire time, trying to get back on track. I've gone through a lot of things in my life, technically and up and down, and so I'm always interested in going further. And the more I find he's right. But if the position's not there in general, you're doomed. You have not only if the position's not there, you're usually locking somewhere else in your body because you didn't free it up enough to get into that position. And then second, even if you have the support and you don't have the position, your sound has nowhere to go. Your air has nowhere to go. So it's all, position is extremely important. It's not the only thing, because there are, and Mark, I think maybe you can agree, there are people that sing with position that support from their throats because it's all position all the time. And that's, I think once.
I'm glad that you presented a very, very viable opposing view a little bit. With still respect to position. Obviously, you got to have both of them, and the teacher has to be smart enough to know when you're not connected properly, when the air is too stuffed up, whether it's sighing too much, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all instinctual. And
Done.
I'm all done, with that.
No, I find it's important to work on your breathing, especially when you're working a lot. Just because, and Mark, you probably know this, having done so many performances, the more you sing weekly and the more performances you have in that week or a month or a year, you get tired. Your body gets tired, and you have to focus on the body eventually just to make sure it's waking up and it's connected. And because if you don't, you end up just straining throughout, by the second half of your season.
I used to always do some treadmill work I always had in the house. I always did a little bit of Zen for relaxation, yoga for for relaxation before a show. I always knew what was going to come out of my throat, so to speak, or the sound before I got into the taxi in New York, before I got into that darn makeup tray. That's for darn sure. I see that picture. That's somewhere.
That looks like is that a Marcello?
Yeah, that's a lot of hair, though.
That is a lot of hair.
Is that a mullet in the back?
Oh, it's baritone hair. It's baritone hair. Mark, you have you're for people who don't know, your studio is still, I'm assuming, in the same place where it's been, which is virtually across the street from the Metropolitan Opera. As such, you have many high-level students who, and I almost use the word student, I use it very, very loosely there. You have a lot of, let's put it this way, you have a lot of superstars who come by and check in with you. These are people who, with respect, have bigger careers than all of us put together, some of them. What are the challenges of dealing with some of these singers who are not really used to being in the voice studio for a while, but they kind of know they need to fix something or whatever the case may be? So how do you negotiate that? And I happen to know a story which I won't share. Well, maybe I could not share his name, of somebody who I was literally witness to him being quite upset with a demonstration that you made. And that was a fun one, but we won't share who that is. But no, you sang a note. That's all you did. So what are the challenges, though, of dealing with? Yes, what are the challenges of dealing with some of these personalities, shall we say?
Well, no matter what, the golden rule applies. You respect the singer. You have 1 hour or however long a singer wants to have time with me. If they want to have 15 minutes, they're going to have a 15-minute listen. That's great. I'm always on time. And bottom line, to try to answer your question, you can only fix so many things within the hour. You can fix a lot of things, but you have to make them believe that. You have to make it fun enough to want them to make little changes. You have to find the most important things to change, if anything, while not ruining their confidence. And not taking credit for them either. I think a lot of star singers don't see teachers because they're like, this guy's going to take credit for me. He's not going to barely say anything. You know what I mean? So I think it's like
is that a thing? That's a thing, huh?
That is a conversation we'll have later.
Oh, okay. Maybe I just haven't been in a situation where anybody wanted to take credit for me except for present company.
Well, so let's say you have an hour. Save an hour. So therefore, you can only do so many things, and you say, okay, this is all you need until we next meet. I hope we can meet sooner, but it's up to you. Keep in touch if you need anything on the road. Send me a clip, a 3-minute clip. You want me to analyze it or whatnot. I'll try to help you out with it. And you're doing great. Keep it going, It's all instinct. It's all instinct. So you're going to give them as much as you can. For example, if they...
Hold on, please. Sorry, Mark. You said...
Let's say there are 3 arias in a role, for example. They want to work on those. Generally speaking, an aria can be technically tweaked in 10 minutes, the entire thing, with what I call David Letterman's, for those of us who know who that is, David Letterman's top 10 list. So if you can give them 10 things in the aria, that can help them and map it out so that they feel that their stamina is good by the end by making special choices, all the better. So you can give them 30 pieces of information in that hour, along with their vocalization, and have them go on their way, because they're only going to come in as much as they want. And so it's all going to be positive. That's it.
Mark, I'm going to ask you a somewhat of a serious question here. Why'd you stop?
Okay, I have asthma. My stamina always was bad. And I don't want that to be an indication that my technique was bad.
Your physical stamina.
My stamina was bad forever. I had no speaking voice, etc. I was able to get the job done with not much not much of a voice. So I'm very, very proud of that. But having to live like a hermit for 13 years in a row to make sure that I was doing fine, staying down in a baritone range when I really had higher notes than that, but I had to be believable in a particular repertoire was very, very difficult as well. As I got older, my asthma got worse and I had heart conditions and I have inflammation issues as a result of that. And so I did not feel at a certain point that I was ever going to move into the Verdi repertoire. I had done everything I wanted to do. And in the last 3 years of my singing career at the Met, I decided I was going to teach at the same time. So while I was out there singing, trying to sing tenor in Arbace and Mineo, I taught a couple of lessons before that. I was very careful about that. But I taught a couple of lessons before that. I liked teaching more. I was always very technically minded. All of us were riveted by Pavarotti and the television, not just me and other people that say that we teach like he sings. We were all riveted by the guy. And I was always very technical. I was very proud to be working with the teacher that I worked with back in Cincinnati, Ohio, this guy. And he taught his entire life. And I thought it was a noble profession, and so therefore I could have kept going. People were like, "What are you doing?" When I stopped, it's ridiculous. But I think it was a good decision overall. So I'm going to stick with that answer.
I'm just going to interject and say that it's, yes, teaching is a noble profession, but it's also one of the backbones of having a lasting career is having a good teacher behind you, because you can't hear what you sound like when you sing. You don't hear what comes out. And if you're making the mistake, you obviously don't know how to fix it. You need someone behind you that knows how to fix it. And it's like when you buy a fucking Ferrari that costs, $250,000, $500,000, you're not going to take it to fucking Texaco to get it fixed. You're going to take it to a specialist, someone that specializes in a car, because you want to keep that investment that you have going at top performance all the time. And that's exactly what a teacher does. A teacher is a very essential part of this career, and it's more than noble. It's extremely, extremely important.
We have a nice comment, Mark, here from Latanya. It says, "I think you're great, Mark. I appreciate your openness and advice for sure. Regardless of whether or not someone studies with you, I love that you truly want to help singers be great." That's very nice, Latanya. What do you have? You have a response to the cover girl of Opera News this month? I'm going to keep calling her that.
Yeah. Oh, do I have a response for her? Oh, yes. Thank you. I mean, we all as teachers say we're there to help, and so long as we have our heart in it for 60 minutes, however long they want to come in, and give them what they want, make sure that they get the answers that they want. If the teacher must be willing to make a few mistakes. Everybody has different habits. If the teacher can fix the mistake in 3 minutes with 3 or 4 plans of attack, so be it. They've gotten their situation remedied to some degree. Right? So everybody is well-meaning, we hope, in this profession. They don't BS their way through the hour. They give real answers. And the only way for a singer to know if a teacher gives real answers is they don't listen to gossip about whether a teacher is good or bad. They actually try a session, for a half hour once in their life. And so long as that they know for sure that the teacher will treat them with respect, will be positive, everything's good to go. You're just trying to add things.
That's such a great point. Gossip is a major destroyer of this business. People gossiping left and right. You know what? If you're out there, find out for your own. Only you know what works for you. You hear good things. You like someone singing. Work with their teacher for a little bit. See if they like it. See if it works for you. If it doesn't, move on. You want to work with a coach. If it works for you, like it. Work. Yeah. Try it for yourself. Do not just go by word of mouth. You know what? Even better. If you want to go by word of something, go by sound. Go by on stage, listen to someone. If you like their singing, if you find that they're technically good, they're making great strides, they are incredible, maybe try out their teacher.
Mark, this is a comment for you. "Some teachers are there solely to blow smoke up our asses," says Latanya. What do you think about cheerleaders?
Well, I think one can be positive yet detailed. I have never finished a lesson, and this is going to sound self-serving, and felt bad about myself. I didn't. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, so being positive is important. James Levine was positive. I don't know if he really meant it, but he was positive. That's good. It's better than being negative. Only a few people, their voices will open up and be great if a teacher is negative. Generally, a teacher is negative when they don't have the answer themselves. They take it out on the singer.
Oh.
Okay? So they need to be positive, but they need to be detailed. So, therefore, if the singer has to be the analyzer. Analyze that teacher, that cheerleader. Is he actually saying jack squat, or what is going on? Am I paying him to sing a recital, as I've heard from one of my Southern tenor friends who's pretty famous? No. So, don't just, you have to know what's right and wrong. The singer's got to really look at it very, very carefully. Am I getting anything out of this? Go away if you're not.
Yeah, right. It's your career, man. You know what I mean? If you're not happy, move on. It's your career.
Absolutely.
It's so tough, though. There's this grandfatherly or fatherly attitude and all of this, and the whole thing gets personal. And it's a mess.
But but the real issue is that if you don't take hold of your career, you have no one to blame it on if it doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
So right. It's great talking to you guys about this stuff. We can talk stories a little bit too. Pavarotti, I know, let me know when it's time. He actually impersonated Roseanne Barr when we were doing the Elysir d'Amore. He was running around his golf cart. He got up. This was right after Roseanne Barr sang the national anthem, and he basically took himself by the you-know-what, like she did, and imitated her. It was hilarious.
There are a lot of myths about Pavarotti, like that he couldn't read music and that he didn't have a There's so many funny stories about, and there's such a strange, odd nobility that people feel when they don't have a teacher or something, as though anybody gives a shit when they hear the person singing. It was actually our friend and your student Morris Robinson who told me back in 2008. He goes, "It doesn't matter, that voice. It doesn't matter." He says it doesn't matter how many coaches I need to pound in my notes. I just need to be sure that I make the guy with the afro happy. Talking about James Levine, because nobody cares what you have to go through to get to. As I'm hitting the mic, nobody cares what you have to go through to get to that point. And there's such a strange. I don't need a teacher. I don't do this. I just don't understand that mentality.
That's funny. It's funny you say that, because you know what? Nobody cares. Like, I don't care if one colleague is better at learning music than the other, as long as the first day of rehearsal you all show up prepared.
Right? Who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah,
if you can't read music and you can't teach yourself music, it's just going to cost you more money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing. It's just going to cost you more money for someone to sit down and teach it to you. But who fucking cares? You know what?
No, we don't care. We don't care. It's a strange thing. All right.
Guys, keep this conversation going.
Yeah, Steven's going to run for a bit.
A dinner that I have to get to. But keep the conversation going. Mark, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yes, and I will advertise our next week's show. Should I do it now real fast before
not yet. Let's do it in a couple of days.
Okay.
But Mark, come on anytime you want. It's a pleasure. And when all this COVID nonsense is over, let's all go out and get a beer.
All right.
It's not nonsense. Wait. I don't want hate mail. It's not nonsense. I'm just meaning nonsense.
No, you're upset with it. That's what you meant by it. Yes,
exactly.
It's real. It's dangerous, but we hate it.
Exactly.
Yes, very good.
Guys.
All right.
And give my love to your wife.
Yeah.
All right. See you.
All right. We have a question mark. It's just the two of us, like it's been for quite a long time. So here you go. It says, question for number 2 from Mark. Same Mark Calvino. It says, for high baritones, dark voice tenors, how does a singer not bring up weight to successfully sing and sustain high notes? And let me add to that, should he not bring up weight?
I think that it's a well-meaning question, and it's a good way to phrase it in layman's terms. But one can feel weight in so many different ways. Oddly enough, if one is in the wrong position, even if they're singing above the top of their head, one can feel weight because it's going to be throaty. You know what I mean? One is going to be feeling pressure on their throat when it's imbalanced. So generally speaking, if you keep the plane of the mask, PLAIN, All right. If you keep the idea of sound and air moving in this direction, so long as you have that little gentle low larynx, how low should the larynx be? Well, not so low that it causes your tongue to be depressed or pull back too darn much, right? So we wanted to make sure that it drops down a little bit and it goes down to where the first obstacle might be, which is about 2/3 of the way down, let's say. Okay, so there has to be that amount of drop, depth, encouraging of low, which could be considered weight by some people, but it's really not. I mean, the larynx shall not be high. I mean, you'll sound like a baritone on low notes and a tenor on high notes if the larynx doesn't generally maintain its gentle low position. So you're going to be shooting from above that, with a higher plane, with the sound in the air, but the larynx will be down there beneath you. So it's mostly about this plane.
Well, Tanya likes that question. Oh, very good, very good. Mark, do you want to talk about? Well, we have time for a story or two here, shall we? Should we talk about we already did our first story, which was our friend Julia Noulamara, who got the job at Opera Columbus. We're very, very happy about that. Have you seen all of those memes with Bernie Sanders? Have you seen all those pictures with Bernie Sanders? Well, it turns out, believe it or not, that almost didn't happen. That's right. The photographer reveals that he almost didn't happen. Can you imagine depriving this week of Bernie memes? Mark, what do you think about all these Bernie memes, and should we nix them by now?
We should nick them. So basically, it's a lot of fun, but in general, finish this off for me.
What's that? I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. You cut off. Sorry, again. You don't give a shit. Yes, that is the game that we normally play. That one didn't happen. There was another interesting little not a kerfuffle really, but just a little mistake that excuse me. I'm trying not to laugh when I tell the story. That Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer made when he was condemning the former president's remarks. Let's take a listen to what Chuck Schumer said, how he described the actions. Let's listen to this little bit of information here, shall we? Here we go.
House will deliver the article of impeachment to the Senate. The Senate will conduct a trial of the impeachment of Donald Trump. It will be a full trial.
Full trial.
It will be a fair trial.
Okay.
But make no mistake, there will be a trial, and when that trial ends, senators will have to decide if they believe Donald John Trump incited the insurrection against the United States.
Now that is quite a mistake to make, Mark. Do we have anything to add to that?
Well, he has incited his own erection, I'm sure, a few times in his life, and he's not humble enough to not say that, shall we say?
Yes. Apparently, he wasn't the first person to make that. Anderson Cooper made that same mistake, actually, when he was. Or is it a mistake? Is it a mistake? I'm not sure it is. All right, Mark. This has been such a joy. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I hope you'll be back in New York soon, and we can get this thing going. We will have a show next week, even with my partner hopefully on the other side of the Atlantic. We'll have more information about that show once we confirm. We don't want to jump the gun here. So for the great Tony Stark of opera, the Tinkerer, Mark Oswald, for the absent currently Stephen Costello, and for myself, Gideon Dabi, thanks for watching. We'll be back next week, same bad time,